want to approach our work today on divisiveness using the framework of inherent enoughness. We've talked a number of times about inherent enoughness, this notion that we, in fact, are enough. And instead of just asserting that, we have talked a number of times about specific qualities, characteristics of being human that enable us to be enough. One of them is the protecting energies that we have. We know what to do in the face of a threat, how to protect ourselves. We also have very powerful connecting energies. We know how to self-regulate. We have the capacity to learn, and we have awareness. If we have those 5 things, I suspect we're enough. And the opportunity in life is to cultivate them with specific attention and intention so that we have access to all of these qualities whenever we feel the need. So I'd like to begin by talking about separateness and how separateness arises out of our need to protect ourselves. And I want to begin with an assertion. Our vulnerability to external divisiveness, is related, closely related, to the degree of separateness we feel internally. So the divisiveness is out there, whether it's what we're seeing on the news, it's in the area of politics, racial justice, healthcare, whatever it is, we see so much divisiveness. It's out there, it's external. How that seeps into us, how we internalize that, relates very much to how separate we are feeling in any given moment. And we've all had and continue to have these moments in which we feel separate, in which we feel left out, left behind, not seen, not heard, in which we feel not enough. So taking a moment here and recalling a time recently when you felt left out, left behind, not seen, not heard. Just noting what that feels like. What that separateness is like. These are circumstances when we feel threatened. And so our protective energies kick into gear, they activate. Now those protective energies evolved over millions of years principally to deal with physical threats. Today, we encounter many, many, many more psychological and emotional threats than we do physical. Physical threats are fairly uncommon. But threats to our psyches, to our sense of well-being, to our identity, to our ego, occur all the time. And when we feel threatened, when these protective energies kick into gear, that's when desire degrades into grasping, when aversion degrades into fear, and when not knowing degrades into delusion. And grasping can show up as acquiring. If I can just get this one more thing, then everything will be all right. A close friend of ours husband died 3 weeks ago. And she said on the phone the other night, if I could just get away for a week, I think everything would settle down. She was with him for 55 years. You think a week is going to fix that? Of course not. But that's our own grasping. She's in a terrible place at the moment. She feels so threatened with this loss. We all do. We know what loss is like. Fear puts us in a place of reacting, of feeling constricted and under the control of some powerful emotion, such as anger or frustration. And that's when we tend to get into the practice of othering. Othering is looking at those people who are different from us. Some of the things that Mike named in his examples that will cause us to make assumptions. And in the othering, we demonize the other. It's the demonizing that creates so much separation and unpleasantness in ourselves. And once we're in delusion, then we're not seeing clearly. We don't see the realities that are right in front of us. We're easily misled by falsehoods. And it's easy to get caught up in catastrophizing. So our daily experiences as human beings are loaded with separateness. All of these little things I've just mentioned come up again and again. And the dualities in our lives, you and me, man and nature, man and God, men and women, man and anybody who's different from me, time and space, are so present and so powerful. And we need to have a clear sense of ourselves. We can't go around violating the rules of time and space every day. So there we are. After millions of years of evolution and several millennia of human experience, I am separate. It's right there. And we also long for belonging, for feeling connected, for feeling cared for and loved. And by the way, when I use the word belonging, I'm not using it in the sense of somebody else owns us. I'm using it in the sense of loving kindness, love that connects, that gives us that sense of feeling cared for and loved. So let's take a look at what it is that makes this connecting quality of our inherent enoughness so real and so powerful. If we look at the history of human civilization, it is easy to get caught up in the violence and the killing and the ways that human beings have been absolutely awful to one another. And it's true. It's right there in front of us. And at the same time, when we look past all of the awful things we've done, and we look at the arc of human beings in civilization, we see that it keeps evolving. And it's our capacity for collaborating, this sense that we belong and connect, that is really what's most powerful over time. In any given moment, protecting energies will overwhelm connecting energies when the threat is strong. But over time, it's the connecting, the collaborating that really matters. That's the story of civilization. And the reason we know it's true, it's real, is that if it weren't, we all would have been dead millennia ago. We wouldn't be here. We also know that human beings are the most helpless species on the planet when they're first born. And it's only those parents who nurture their young, whose genes get passed on. Nurturing has become part of our DNA. It's how we have evolved. It's absolutely essential to our survival. We also have what some contemporary philosophers have described as intersubjective reality, which refers to those things that as communities and as societies we have come to deeply believe and abide by, even though they don't begin to have the reality of a human body or a rock or a mountain. So here's a couple of examples, one substantive and one absurd. I'll begin with the absurd one. How real have we made the Super Bowl? 100 million people watch the Super Bowl. It's become a national holiday. It's just a thought. There's nothing real there. Just a bunch of people running around in funny get-ups, banging each other. That's all it is. And yet it's become huge because it's a story we've chosen to believe. A more substantive story is the U.S. Constitution. How it was originally conceived and how it has evolved over 200 years. And how it functions as a guide. Whether we agree with how other people interpret it or not, it's held out as a guide. It's been a very powerful force. That's an intersubjective reality. We are unique as human beings in our ability to do that. And those are connecting kinds of things. In the 1930s, if I'm not mistaken, British physicist David Bohm conducted a series of experiments that resulted in what's called the principle of non-locality. And he took maybe it was the 40s, I'm not sure. He and his colleagues split an atom in Chicago and carried one part of the atom to London. And then they performed operations on the remaining part of the atom in Chicago. And simultaneously, the atom in London was affected in exactly the same ways. We're all connected. So whether it's our capacity for collaborating, our capacity for nurturing, intersubjective reality, or quantum physics, we're all connected. We all belong to everyone else. Separateness is the illusion. Belonging is reality. Separateness is just an illusion. It's the reality. Belonging, connectedness is the reality. So over time, as you become acclimated to this shift in understanding and perspective, how will your thoughts, spoken words, and actions be affected? Let's practice. Beginning by allowing our attention to gather into this space in this moment. Gently letting go of all this thinking we've been doing, all these words that have accumulated in our heads. Taking a couple of deep breaths, and on the out-breath, letting go of all that extra energy that builds up with so many words. and softening. Taking a moment to soften. Checking our bodies for places that we might soften. Jaw muscles, neck, shoulders. And as we're turning our attention to our breathing, perhaps also focusing on the heart. Connecting the expanding and contracting in the chest, the breathing, and the heart. And recalling an experience, a recent experience, in which you felt as if you were belonging, as if you were connected, as if you were cared for. Who was present? What was happening? Noticing your feelings, the emotions, the physical sensations. Resting in this place of feeling cared for, of belonging. Coming to know this experience. Perhaps there's a sense of warmth. Continuing to feel this sense of belonging around your heart. Perhaps even placing your hand over your heart, feeling a little more warmth and connection. Allowing the heart to soften. Realizing that even in the midst of feeling cared for, feeling connected, feeling a sense of belonging. We can tune into those moments when there's some pain in the heart, some sense of difficulty, some moment of feeling separate. And realizing that at one time or another, every human being feels separate, feels the pain, the discomfort of separateness. So feeling both our own discomfort or pain and allowing the pain and discomfort of others to be present as well. And perhaps as you're sensing into another's pain and separateness, there's a sense of connecting that's occurring as well. A sense of caring, belonging. Realizing that no matter who it is, regardless, we can all feel this pain. That part of belonging is feeling the pain of everyone. And perhaps taking a couple of deep breaths and then allowing your breathing to resume its natural cycle. Let's take a few moments and make a few notes about what belonging, feeling connected, feeling cared for, mean to you personally. What does that feel like inside you? And why does it matter to you?